Hey there, sleuths. Welcome to the Detective's Den, your one-stop spot for unpacking mysteries, cracking cases, and diving deep into the unknown. I'm your name, and I'll be your guide on this investigative journey. Globe showing Europe, Africa. Now tell me, from which corner of the globe are you tuning in today? Drop your location in the comments below. Let's see just how far our detective network reaches. Chapter 1. A Death in Bloomsbury. It was a bitter Monday morning when the call came in. A body in Bloomsbury. Female. Mid-20s. No visible wounds. No signs of forced entry. Flat door locked from the inside. Just a single, out-of-place detail, a black raven feather resting squarely on the victim's chest. DCI John Luther stood at the curb just outside the building, watching his breath mist in the frigid air. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wrapped in a long grey coat that had seen better years. A red tie hung loosely round his neck, crooked as ever. His eyes were bloodshot, either from lack of sleep or too much thinking. Possibly both. He nodded to the uniformed officer on the door. Top floor. Flat 3C, the copper said, keeping his voice low, as if afraid the cold might carry it away. Luther climbed the stairs slowly. He hated lifts. Always had. Something about being boxed in. It reminded him too much of choices made, and their consequences. At the door to 3C Emma Lane was waiting for him. Young, sharp, clean-cut. New to his team. Still had that glimmer of idealism behind her steely eyes. "Morning, sir," she said. "It's strange, this one." "That's why I'm here," Luther muttered, brushing past her into the flat. The air was still, too still. Luther had worked enough death scenes to know the feeling. The atmosphere clung to the walls like damp smoke. Time stopped in places like this. Moments trapped in amber. The woman, later ID'd as Sophie Chandler, a freelance graphic designer, lay on a white sofa, arms folded across her chest like she'd been arranged by someone with an eye for symmetry. Blonde hair fanned over the cushions. Eyes closed. No sign of pain. And there it was, the raven feather. Jet black. Sleek. Placed deliberately on her blouse, right over her heart. Luther crouched beside the body, squinting. No bruising. No signs of a struggle. She didn't fight back. Forensics say the front door was locked from the inside, Emma said from behind. Windows, too. No signs of forced entry. He scanned the room. Clean, but not obsessively so. Laptop on the desk. Mug in the sink. A scarf hung neatly over a chair. How long's she been dead? Luther asked. Coroner estimates around 1 a.m. No neighbors heard anything. No screams. No noise. No mess, no sound, no witnesses. Luther ran a hand across his mouth. Like she just gave up. Emma cleared her throat. There's no prints. Nothing useful, anyway. Just hers. We did find something else, though. She handed him a clear evidence bag. Inside, a page torn from a notebook. A single line written in spidery handwriting. We wear civility like a mask. Some of us forget it's a lie. Luther's brow furrowed. Bit poetic for your average psycho. That's not the only thing, Emma said, lowering her voice. Same thing was found 5 years ago. Kilburn case. Remember? Luther stood slowly. He did remember. A man named Miles Ferro. Killed 3 people, all of them quietly and cleanly. Left feathers, notes. Claimed he was exposing society's delusion of morality. The press dubbed him the philosopher. But Ferro had died, suicide in police custody. Luther had read the file twice. It was supposed to be over. Could be a copycat, Emma offered. Could be, Luther muttered, but his gut said otherwise. Something about the feather. The precision. The note. This wasn't mimicry. This was evolution. He walked slowly to the window and looked out across the city. London below, breathing in its usual Monday morning fog. People rushing about their lives, blissfully unaware that someone out there had played God last night, and might do it again. We need to pull Pharaoh's case files. Everything. Even the bits that got buried, he said, still staring out. Emma nodded, already jotting it down. And we speak to anyone who knew her. Friends. Colleagues. Flatmates. Anyone who might have seen anything. He turned back, eyes harder now. But start with her phone. If this killer's sending messages, I want the first word on it. Luther knelt one last time beside the body. There was something about the way she'd been laid out. Peaceful, yes, but hollow. As if someone had entered the soul and left the shell behind. He stared at the feather. Black. Glossy. Beautiful, even. But nothing about it felt right. Chapter 2, The Message. The rain started mid-morning, not heavy, but sharp and needling. The kind of London drizzle that soaked you through before you'd even realized it. DCI John Luther stood under the awning outside Holborn Station, collar turned up, cigarette burning slowly between his fingers. He didn't smoke often these days, but murder had a way of breaking habits. Emma Lane approached, shielding her notebook from the rain. We've pulled the call logs and text records from Sophie Chandler's phone, she said, breathless from the stairs. There's one message that stands out. Sent last night at 12:52 a.m., just minutes before the estimated time of death. Luther crushed the cigarette underfoot and followed her inside, brushing droplets off his coat. Back in the incident room, the phone sat on the table in an evidence bag, next to a stack of forensics reports. Lane handed him a printout of the message. From, unknown. Truth is the lie we trust. He recognized the phrasing. The same words scrawled on the mirror in the second crime scene, reported barely 2 hours ago. A man found dead in his flat in Camden, early 30s, systems analyst. No signs of a struggle, no blood, no trauma. Just another feather, and the exact same message left in marker across the bathroom mirror. Luther exhaled slowly. It's not just random. It's structured. Emma nodded. Looks like a manifesto, doesn't it? Or a sermon, Luther muttered. Our boy's not killing for pleasure. He's preaching. He circled to the whiteboard where both victims were now pinned, Sophie Chandler and Owen Nash. No obvious connection. Different professions, different circles. No overlap on social media. And yet, 2 victims in 24 hours, he said. And both deaths so clean it's surgical. No panic. No mess. No trace. Emma tapped a file. Toxicology's back on Chandler. Same neurotoxin as Nash. It's untraceable without a specific scan. Could have been administered through food or drink. It shuts down the nervous system, looks like natural death unless you know what to look for. Silent, sophisticated, and philosophical. Luther's jaw tightened. Not your average nutter, is he? Emma hesitated. There's one more thing, sir. Luther turned. She handed him a second evidence bag, this time with a photo. A black and white print, the kind you'd get from a cheap instant camera. It showed Sophie Chandler walking down Oxford Street. Nothing unusual, except for the timestamp, 9:47 p.m., 2 nights before her death. She didn't post it. It wasn't on her phone. It was slipped into her postbox, Emma said. Delivered yesterday morning. Surveillance, Luther muttered. He's watching them before he strikes. And letting them know. It's psychological torture. Luther stared at the photo. Sophie's eyes weren't looking at the camera, but you could almost feel her sensing it. That prickle of the hunted. He dropped the bag on the table and began pacing. We need to find out what links them. Why these two? What do they represent? Emma opened her laptop. I've already pulled their social media, email logs, employment history. Nothing overlaps, yet. Luther paused. What if it's not about connection? What if it's contrast? Emma raised an eyebrow. Think about it, Luther continued. A designer and a systems analyst. Creative and analytical. Two ends of a spectrum. What if he's picking people to symbolize ideas, roles in society he sees as false? False how? False masks. Roles we wear to hide who we are. That's what the message means, truth is the lie we trust. He doesn't think truth exists in people anymore. Just performance. Emma frowned. So he's punishing them? For pretending? Not punishing, Luther said. Exposing. The room fell into silence. Then his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. Luther. A voice, male, soft, confident. Not hurried. Not masked. You're starting to see, aren't you? Luther froze. Who is this? You look at the surface. You call it murder. But I'm not killing anyone, John. I'm setting them free. He gestured to Emma to trace the call. She was already typing. They all lived lies, the voice went on. So do you. You know me. Oh yes. I've studied you. Your rage. Your pain. Your rules that bend when the light's too bright. I'm not here to stop you, John. I'm here to finish what you began. The line went dead. Emma cursed. Call bounced through 2 VPNs. No fixed origin. Luther didn't move. He was staring at the floor, jaw clenched, knuckles white around the phone. Sir? He looked up slowly. He's not just watching. He's orchestrating. Every move. Every word. Emma's voice dropped. He's playing a game. Luther nodded once. Yeah. And now? I'm in it. Chapter 3, Echoes of the Past. The Thames rolled black and cold beneath the Southwark Bridge, sluggish under the weight of a cloud-choked sky. John Luther leaned on the railing, shoulders hunched, lost in thought. The voice on the phone echoed in his mind like a nursery rhyme with a knife under its tongue. They all lived lies. So do you. He wasn't shaken. Not quite. But he'd felt it, that invisible thread between hunter and hunted. He'd danced with madmen before. But this one wasn't looking to escape. He wanted a stage. Back at the station, DS Emma Lane had pulled every scrap of documentation from the Miles Ferro case. The so-called philosopher had haunted Luther for months before his arrest, 3 calculated murders, each staged with the same eerie precision they were now seeing again. But Ferro had died in custody. Suicide, officially. Case closed. Unless it wasn't, Luther muttered. He walked into the incident room where Emma was already waist-deep in files. You're not going to like this, she said. Luther raised an eyebrow. Don't think I've liked anything this week. She held up a coroner's report. Ferro's body was cremated. Standard procedure. But the post-mortem? There's an inconsistency. Luther moved closer. Where? Emma tapped the line, ligature marks consistent with suicide by hanging. Then the addendum, Bruising pattern suggests struggle prior to death. Possible second-party involvement not ruled out at time of report. They buried their doubt, she said. Signed off before they could investigate further. Luther took the page, staring at it like it might confess to something. If Pharaoh didn't kill himself, then someone did it for him, Emma said. Or with him, Luther added darkly. He turned toward the board. The evidence was thin, 2 victims, 1 pattern, 1 ghost of a case that should have stayed buried. But something else was gnawing at him. The voice on the phone. The tone. Calm, rehearsed. Someone who wanted to be understood. Luther grabbed his coat. We're going to Broadmoor. Emma blinked. The hospital. Pharaoh spent his final weeks there. If this new guy's connected, someone inside might have seen his shadow. The journey was long and silent. The road to Broadmoor Mental Hospital wound like a grey snake through the Berkshire countryside. Luther hated the place, not because of the madness inside, but because of how close it felt to truth. Dr. Clarissa Tate met them at reception. Mid-50s, silver streak in her hair, sharp eyes. Detective Chief Inspector. I remember Pharaoh. Smug bastard. Kept calling himself an idealist. Luther cut to it. Did he have visitors? None officially, she said, frowning. But he was transferred into isolation 3 weeks before his death. Apparently there was an altercation with another patient. Who? Emma asked. Tate checked her clipboard. Patient 402, Gideon Rook. Former philosophy professor. In for paranoid delusions and aggravated assault. Sound familiar? Luther nodded slowly. Yeah. Rook. That name rings. Emma was already pulling it up on her phone. Gideon Rook. Dismissed from King's College after publishing a controversial essay called The Death of Morality. Later arrested for attacking a university official, claimed he was cleansing hypocrisy. Lovely, Luther muttered. Where is he now? Tate hesitated. Released last year. Cleared by an independent psychiatric board. Off meds, off radar. Luther's jaw tightened. No flag? No aftercare. He met the conditions. Amium started dropping feet, she said stiffly. Yeah, right up until Sirs, and quoting him, he snapped. Back in London, night had fallen hard. Rain glittered on the streets like oil. Luther sat at his desk, staring at Gideon Rook's face on his monitor. Mid-40s. Angular. Too still. The kind of face you'd pass in the street and forget, until it turned up in your nightmares. Emma appeared in the doorway. Got something? He looked up. CCTV from outside Chandler's flat, the night she died. We missed it before because the camera was fogged, but tech enhanced it. Watch. She played the clip. A man in a black coat, hood up, standing across the street. Motionless. Watching. No face. No. But, she skipped ahead. Same man. Camden. Outside Nash's flat. Same stance. Same coat. Same watcher, Luther said. He stalks them. Learns them. And now he's learning us. Luther leaned back in his chair. We've got a name. A motive. A signature. But no mistake yet. No ego slip. He's too careful. Emma sat opposite him. So how do we catch a man who doesn't want to escape? Luther looked at the screen. Gideon Rook's eyes stared back, dead calm. We force him into the light, he said. Emma frowned. And if he wants to be there? Luther gave a humorless smile. Then we're already behind. Chapter 4, The Interview. The next morning brought frost and fog, London at its most theatrical. The streets were slick with last night's rain, rooftops powdered white. Luther stood outside the weathered brick building of King's College, staring up at its arched windows. Emma joined him, flipping through her notebook. Gideon Rook lectured here for 12 years. Ethics, moral philosophy, logic. Resigned after that infamous paper, The Death of Morality. Made him a pariah in academic circles. Accused of manipulating students. Eventually lost his tenure after that assault charge. Luther grunted. They say he was brilliant. Emma nodded. Too brilliant. One student said it was like he could see right through you, made you doubt if you were even real. Luther smirked. Sounds like just the kind of bastard who'd enjoy playing God. They stepped inside. The university halls were quiet, echoing with distant footsteps and the occasional cough of a tired professor. The administrator who met them, a thin, nervous man named Harris, led them to a small archive room at the back of the old philosophy wing. All we have on Rook is in here. He requested his record sealed after his resignation, Harris said. But considering the circumstances, the board agreed to cooperate. Luther nodded. Good. Because he's started writing again. This time in blood. The archive smelled of dust and forgotten arguments. Stacks of papers, typed lecture notes, annotated books. Emma moved to a box marked Rook, G, and started sifting through. His handwriting's all over this, she muttered. Margins full of cryptic stuff. Listen to this. Morality is a theater. The audience applauds while sin sits quietly in the front row. She held up another note, torn from a journal. He who wears the mask of justice must one day face himself in the dark. Emma looked up. He's not just quoting ideas, John. He's rehearsing them. Luther didn't answer. He was staring at a photograph pinned to a file. It was Rook, years younger, standing beside Miles Ferro, the original philosopher killer. Luther's fingers tightened around the edge of the photo. He knew him. Could be coincidence, Emma offered. Or it could be mentorship. They took the files and left the university, the London streets now buzzing with lunch-hour commuters. But Luther didn't care about traffic. His thoughts were on patterns, not just of crime, but of ideology. Back at the station, they laid the findings across the evidence board. The link between Ferro and Rook had cracked the case open, now it was time to widen it. Emma returned from the tech room with a frown. Something strange, sir. We ran Rook's name through financials and travel records, nothing unusual there. But his online footprint vanished last year. No emails, no purchases, no logins. Like he went dark deliberately. Luther nodded. Classic prep. No loose ends. Emma hesitated. There's one exception. 3 months ago, someone logged into a secure university forum under his credentials. Posted a long thread under the username Galathea, ancient Greek for truth. She handed him the printout. The post read more like a sermon than a discussion. Truth does not arrive as a guest. It must be torn through the fabric of delusion. Justice is not blind. She sees only what suits her. At the bottom, a signature. To unmask the world, one must start with its heroes. Luther stared at the page. Meaning us, he muttered. He's coming after people like you. No, Luther said. He's coming after me. That evening, Emma left the station, promising to follow up with Ferro's old psychiatrist. Luther remained behind, pacing his office like a lion in a cage. The message was clear, Rook wasn't just copying Ferro, he'd continued his mission. But what was the endgame? He pulled out his personal case notes, something he rarely did. Old files. Names. Mistakes. He flipped through them until one caught his eye, Dominic Levi's, a whistleblower who'd vanished after Luther had leaked his name to the press. A black mark he'd never quite wiped clean. Rook would know about that. He would use it. The thought chilled him. Then his office phone rang. He answered. Luther. The same voice. Calm, articulate, and terrifyingly sure of itself. You're starting to remember, aren't you? Luther stood silent. You hide it well, John, your guilt. But it leaks. You wear it like a damp coat. Heavy. Smelling of failure. What do you want? To help you, the voice said. To strip away the lies. To finish what Pharaoh began. You're the final mask, John. The last performance. The line clicked dead. Luther didn't move. His hands were fists at his sides. His jaw clenched. The room around him felt suddenly much smaller. He walked out without a word and stood outside in the freezing air. The city pulsed around him, taxis, sirens, shouting, laughter. All the noise of a world pretending everything was fine. But it wasn't. Somewhere out there, Gideon Rook was watching. Planning. Playing philosopher and executioner. And he was just getting started. Chapter 5, Crosshairs. London was rarely quiet, but tonight felt unusually still. As if the city itself were holding its breath. Luther sat alone in the incident room, the desk lamp casting long shadows across the floor. The whiteboard in front of him was a web of photos, timelines, quotes, and one name in bold marker. Gideon Rook. He lit another cigarette, a habit he didn't like to explain, and stared at the latest crime scene photo. Third victim. Dominic Levi's. Found hanged in an abandoned church in Hackney. Luther knew that name too well. A former whistleblower in a corruption case. Luther had leaked his name to force pressure on a crooked council official. The fallout had been ugly. And now Levi's was dead. Stripped, posed like a penitent monk beneath a stained glass window. Another raven feather left on his chest. Another message on the wall, this time in red spray paint. Redemption is the lie of the guilty. The guilt hit Luther like a punch to the ribs. He'd crossed lines before, bent rules, broken a few, but now the past was crawling back, blood on its hands and philosophy in its mouth. He stared at the wall. Rook wasn't just picking victims, he was making statements. Each murder a chapter in some twisted moral play. And now Luther was in the spotlight. Down the corridor, DS Emma Lane walked briskly, holding her tablet. She entered without knocking. We got the CCTV back from the church perimeter. Luther looked up. There's grainy footage of someone entering the grounds at 3:16 a.m. long coat. Hood. Same build as the watcher from before. But still no clear face. The cameras caught something else though. She flipped the tablet and played the clip. It showed the figure standing still outside the church gates for 2 minutes. Then, slowly, he turned toward the camera. Not walking. Not speaking. Just staring. Emma paused it. Luther leaned in. He wants us to see him now, she said. No, Luther muttered. He wants me to see him. Later that morning, Emma's voice echoed down the hall. Sir. You need to see this. Luther followed her into the tech office. On her screen was an email, sent to her police account just minutes ago, subject line, confession of the mask. Inside, a photo of Luther. Taken from outside his flat. Through the window. Time-stamped, last night. I don't know how he got it, Emma said. I never gave out my direct email, not even in press reports. Luther exhaled slowly. He's inside the system. Emma's brow furrowed. Meaning? Either he's hacked the Met, Luther said, or someone inside is helping him. That hit hard. Emma didn't say anything, but the thought was there, the discomfort of realizing the snake might already be in the garden. We traced that IP, Luther said. Now. By mid-afternoon, Tech traced the email's origin to a coffee shop in Shoreditch. Luther and Emma were in the car in minutes, tires screeching as they pulled into the rain-slick street. Inside the cafe, a barista confirmed someone had used the public Wi-Fi that morning. Paid in cash. Wore gloves. Sat facing the street. Left no name. Only detail? Polite. Ordered black tea. Luther scanned the CCTV from the cafe's cameras. And there he was again, that same hooded figure, staring out the window like he was waiting for someone. He knew we'd trace it, Luther said. It's bait. Emma stiffened. You think he wants us to chase him? Luther didn't answer. He was already out the door. That evening, the mood in the incident room was grim. Luther stood over the evidence table, staring down at the map of London. Each murder was marked, Bloomsbury, Camden, Hackney. A triangle. Deliberate. Balanced. He circled it with a red pen. Emma stood beside him, arms folded. He's building something, she said. A pattern. Luther tapped the center of the triangle. And this is where he'll strike next. Emma leaned closer. Southwark. Somewhere public. Somewhere symbolic. He wants a performance. He wants us there. Emma hesitated. We could set a trap. We already have, Luther said, eyes narrowing. He just doesn't know it yet. But Luther was wrong. At 2 a.m., while most of the team was in the briefing room planning surveillance grids, another email came through, this time, addressed to Luther himself. Subject, end scene. Attachment, a video. He played it. A dark room. A man tied to a chair. Blood trickling down his forehead. Then, the camera shifted. A woman entered the frame, gagged. Eyes wide. Luther's stomach dropped. It was Emma. Chapter 6, The Hunter Becomes the Hunted. The room spun slightly as Luther stood, fists clenched, staring at the frozen frame on his screen. Emma Lane, gagged, blood at her temple. Behind her, nothing but darkness. No visible walls. No sound except for the low hum of the video file, recorded in chilling silence. The timer at the bottom ticked in red. For minutes and 52 seconds, and counting. He hit play. Rook's voice came through, calm and unhurried. Hello, John. You've been busy. So have I. I thought it only right to take something of yours, since you've taken so much of others. This isn't punishment. It's revelation. The camera slowly zoomed in on Emma's face. She blinked hard, jaw working beneath the gag. Her fear was unmistakable, but so was the fire in her eyes. She wasn't giving up. You've played judge and executioner for years. But now you'll understand the truth. You've never been in control. You've only ever been chasing shadows. The screen went black. The timer stopped at midnight. Luther didn't move. His knuckles were white. Then, a second email arrived. Subject, catch me. Attached, coordinates. Southwark. Near the old train depot. Luther grabbed his coat and his Glock, ignoring the calls from his team down the corridor. Sir, what's happening? Luther didn't answer. He was already out the door. The streets were empty as he drove, engine growling through the rain-soaked city. Traffic lights blurred red and green in the wet glass. His mind raced. Why Emma? Because she got close. Because she believed in the rules. Because she trusted him. He parked on the edge of the Southwark Industrial Quarter, a graveyard of shuttered warehouses and decaying railway arches. The air stank of rust and damp. No CCTV. No pedestrians. The perfect hunting ground. He moved quickly, footsteps muffled by wet gravel. The GPS on his phone led him down a narrow alley behind the depot, where a heavy iron door stood half open. He drew his weapon. Inside, the darkness was almost total. The only light came from a single hanging bulb swaying above a table, and tied to a chair in its pale circle, Emma Lane. She was alive. Bleeding, yes, bruised, but alert. Her eyes snapped to him the moment he entered. Luther crossed quickly, knife in hand, cutting the ropes. "Are you hurt?" he whispered. She nodded. "He's here." A sound came from behind them, slow clapping. Luther spun, gun raised. From the shadows emerged Gideon Rook. He was everything Luther expected and nothing like he imagined. Lean, mid-40s, salt and pepper beard. Calm eyes. No rage. No madness. Just terrifying stillness. "You came alone," Rook said. "I hoped you would." Luther stepped in front of Emma. "You're done." "Am I?" Rook smiled faintly. "I've done nothing, John. Only revealed what was already broken. You've killed 3 people." "I've killed no one," Rook replied. "They were lies in human form. Facades. I merely removed the illusions. Set them free." "And her?" He gestured to Emma. "She needed to see what you really are." "You're not a prophet," Luther growled. "You're a coward hiding behind riddles and feathers." Rook took a step closer. "I studied you. Your cases. Your judgments. The lines you crossed when the system wasn't enough. You're just like me, John, you just don't write it down." Luther cocked the gun. "And yet I'm the one still holding this." Rook nodded. "Yes. Which means you have a choice." His voice lowered. "Kill me. Right here. End it. And she walks free. No trial, no headlines, no more deaths. Just silence." Emma stirred behind him. "John, don't." Rook held out his arms, like a martyr awaiting judgment. "Come on, John. Be the man you really are. Not the mask you wear." Luther's finger twitched on the trigger. For one terrifying second, the idea felt tempting. Easy. One shot, and it ends. But he lowered the weapon. "No," he said. "You don't get to decide how this ends." From outside came the sound of sirens. His backup had arrived. The trap, set hours ago, had worked. The email had been traced. The building surrounded. Rook's eyes finally shifted. Anger, disbelief. For the first time, he looked human. "You lied." Luther stepped forward. "No. I just finally understood you." Rook lunged, fast, but Luther was faster. He slammed the butt of the gun into Rook's jaw. The philosopher crumpled to the floor. Emma looked up at him, breathing hard. "Took you long enough." He let out a breath. "You all right?" "Been through worse." He almost smiled. Back at the station, hours later, the storm had passed. Rook was in custody. 3 lives couldn't be brought back, but a 4th had been saved. Luther stood outside, watching the city wake up, bathed in cold light. Emma joined him, coffee in hand. "You still believe in redemption?" she asked. He shrugged. "I believe in consequences." She nodded. "Well, today, you chose the right one." Luther looked down at the still, empty street. "Yeah," he muttered. This time. Chapter 7, Into the Raven's Nest. 2 days later, the world was moving again. Gideon Rook sat in a high-security cell at Belmarsh Prison, silent and expressionless. The press had caught wind of the arrest, the Raven Killer, the philosopher's heir, they called him. London's tabloids ran wild with headlines, but Luther knew the truth. This wasn't over. Not yet. He could feel it. Like the last note of a song still ringing in the air. Rook had said nothing since his arrest. No confession, no emotion. Just silence. Luther paced the corridor outside the interrogation suite. Behind the two-way glass, Rook sat with his hands folded, staring at the wall like it held answers only he could read. "Been at it 2 hours," said Emma, joining him with a file in hand. No movement. "He's not flinching." "He's waiting," Luther said. "He wants me." "You sure you're ready?" "No," he muttered, then pushed the door open. The room was cold. Sterile. Rook didn't look up as Luther entered, only offered a small, amused smile, like an old friend welcoming company. "Detective Chief Inspector," Rook said softly. "Have you come to ask me why?" "No," Luther replied, pulling out the chair opposite. "I came to tell you what happens next." Rook tilted his head. "You still believe this is about punishment? Trials? Justice?" He gave a soft laugh. "We were never playing the same game." "You think this is a game?" Luther leaned forward. 3 people are dead. You abducted a serving officer. You poisoned a woman in her home. That's not philosophy. That's murder. Rook's eyes gleamed. They were illusions. Like most people. You know that, John. You see them every day. Pretending. Wearing suits and badges and smiles. But underneath? Rot. Then what does that make you? Luther shot back. You watched them. You planned every second. You staged it like a theater. What mask were you wearing? Rook leaned in. None. That's the difference. They stared at each other, 2 men separated by inches but worlds apart. I didn't kill them, Rook said. I simply gave them the moment, the truth, before the curtain fell. You drugged them. You wrote riddles on walls. That's not truth. That's cowardice. Rook's voice dropped, almost gentle. What scared you more, John, that I did those things? Or that I knew you'd understand why? Luther's hands curled into fists on the table. You say you studied me. You think we're the same. Rook didn't blink. I know we are. You walk into rooms full of horror and look for patterns, not pity. You bend the law when it suits you. You justify it in the name of justice. You're wrong. Rook smiled faintly. Then why haven't you told them about Dominic Levi's? Luther froze. He died because of your leak, Rook continued. The public never knew. Your team never knew. You made that choice, and he paid the price. But you kept your badge. You slept at night. So tell me, John, what's the real difference between us? Luther stood abruptly, knocking the chair back. I don't kill people to prove a point. Rook leaned back, satisfied. No? You just let them die. Luther left the room in silence, walking past the observation glass without a word. His jaw was set tight, every muscle stiff. Emma followed. Sir? I'm fine, he said, too fast. She grabbed his arm. No, you're not. He looked at her, really looked, and saw the bruises still fading on her face, the cut by her hairline. I should have stopped him sooner, he said. You did stop him. Not before he made it personal. Emma's voice was steady. It was always personal, John. Just not about you. He wanted to show the world something. To expose people. You were just the mirror. Luther didn't answer. She stepped closer. He got into your head. That's what he does. But he's behind bars now. And you're still here. He nodded, slowly. Yeah. Still here. That night, Luther walked alone through the South Bank, hands in his coat pockets, collar up against the cold. London moved around him, drunk couples laughing, buses humming past, street musicians playing half-sad jazz. He stopped on a footbridge over the Thames, staring down at the black water. His reflection shimmered on the surface, broken, uncertain. Behind him, a raven landed on the railing. He watched it for a long moment. Then turned and walked away. Back at Belmarsh, Rook sat in his cell, hands folded. He stared at the ceiling. And smiled. Chapter 8, Black Winter. A thick fog rolled across the city like a curtain drawn over a stage, muffling the sounds of London. It was late December, and the frost clung to every rooftop and railing. Luther stood alone outside the courthouse, coat collar high, fingers tight around a paper cup that had long since gone cold. Inside, Gideon Rook was standing trial. No jury. No gallery. The press had been shut out, citing security concerns. The public would hear about the verdict eventually, but the story had already moved on. Christmas was coming, and London had other things to worry about. Except Luther. He hadn't moved on. He couldn't. Emma approached from the steps. Her face was pale in the morning light, but her eyes were clearer now. Steadier. He didn't say a word, she said. No testimony. Just sat there, watching everyone. Luther didn't look at her. That's all he ever wanted. To be seen. She handed him a folded piece of paper. They found this in his prison cell. Thought you'd want to read it. Luther unfolded it slowly. Inside, one line, written in that same deliberate hand. The final mask is always the hardest to remove. He read it twice, then pocketed the note. Any regrets? Emma asked. He gave a faint smile. Too many to count. That evening, Luther returned to his flat in Shoreditch, bare walls, half-packed boxes, the radiator clicking in protest. He hadn't properly lived there in months. Truth was, he hadn't properly lived anywhere in years. He poured himself a whiskey and sat on the couch, turning on the telly. The news flickered across the screen, Parliament infighting, a cold snap warning, festive shopping reports. No mention of Rook. No mention of the people he'd killed. The world had already forgotten them. Luther turned the TV off. Outside, the fog pressed against the windows like a tide. The city felt quieter than it should. He reached for his notebook, the one he hadn't opened since the Rook case began, and flipped through the names. Sophie Chandler. Owen Nash. Dominic Levi's. He paused at Levi's name. He'd meant to protect the man. But good intentions didn't matter when the outcome was the same. Rook had been right about one thing, consequences didn't ask for justification. The weight settled again. A knock at the door. He frowned. Unannounced visitors were rare. Opening it, he found DSU Martin Schenk, coat buttoned to the chin, wool cap tucked under one arm. Evening, John, he said. Schenk, Luther nodded, stepping aside. The older man entered, taking in the sparse room. Still living like a ghost, I see. It suits me. Schenk gave him a long look. You're not planning on disappearing again, are you? I might, Luther replied, half a shrug. I've been thinking about it. Schenk sighed. I came to tell you before you hear it from someone else. Rook's team filed an appeal. claims he's mentally unfit to stand trial. They are angling for a transfer to psychiatric care. Luther's expression hardened. He knows what he's doing. We both know that. But the courts play by different rules. Silence. Then Schenk added, I also came to say thank you. For what? For stopping him. For not pulling the trigger. Luther chuckled without humor. I thought about it. Every day since. And you didn't. That still matters. Luther looked away. I'm not sure it does. Schenk nodded toward the whiskey. May I? Luther handed him a glass. They sat, two tired men, the silence stretching between them. You ever wonder, Luther said after a while, if we just feed them? The ones like Rook? Every time we chase them, confront them, try to understand them, maybe we're just giving them more of what they want. Schenk sipped the drink. Maybe. But not chasing them, that's worse. Later that night, Luther stood again on the bridge over the Thames. The same spot where it all began, the place he always came when things got too loud. The water below was calm, reflecting the city lights like scattered embers. He pulled the piece of paper from his pocket, Rook's final note, and set it alight with a match. The flame curled the edges, flickering gold in the wind, then crumbled into ash. He watched it fall into the river. Behind him, someone spoke. You're not like him, John. He turned. Emma stood there, scarf wrapped tight, her breath visible in the air. Don't let him live in your head rent-free, she said. He wants to be your shadow. Don't give him that power. Luther looked back at the water. What if I already have? She stepped beside him. Then it's time to turn the light on. He didn't reply. But he didn't walk away either. They stood there a long while, not saying much, just listening to the quiet hum of the city. Above them, a raven circled once, then vanished into the mist.